It's been several decades since Jeep has offered a pickup truck, but the demand was so high that Jeep decided to offer one once again. Here it is, the 2020 Jeep Gladiator. This one is the new Mojave trim, and that's the interesting part about this truck. Whereas the Rubicon is meant for low-speed rock crawling, this one is meant for high-speed dune running. Now, the Wrangler and the Gladiator are very capable off-road, but they've lost a little bit of their thunder in recent years to the Ford F-150 Raptor. That's because you can see videos of the Raptor going fast with the suspension jumping up and down on dunes. It's just a little bit more exciting to watch something go off-roading in high speed than it is watching it go 1 mile an hour over a rock. That is why Jeep has introduced this new Mojave trim, and that's why we're going to talk about it today. Now, new for 2020, the Mojave trim comes in as the top Gladiator model. It's actually just above the Rubicon, but they're just a little bit different in functionality. If you want to do more low-speed rock crawling, the Rubicon is more for you, but if you live in Florida where I live and you have access to sand and mud, this is going to be the better truck. Now, we've got Mojave written big here. We've got the graphic all along the side there. The Mojave obviously being a desert, the Rubicon is an off-road rocky trail. We, of course, have our big Jeep-style bumper here with the large orange tow hooks. All of the accents on the Mojave trim are going to be orange on the inside and out. Now, you're not going to notice those orange accents quite as much because we have the pumpkin metallic. Somebody at FCA's naming department definitely deserves a bonus for that one. Paint job, but you can obviously get other colors. You can get these fenders in body color if you want, but we have them in plastic here. Now, Jeep has widened the track on the Mojave. These fenders are a little bit wider to house these 33-inch Falcon all-terrain tires. You can also get mud terrain tires. And if we look deep in here, you're going to see Fox Racing shocks with military-grade fluid. That means the shock and rebound of this truck is going to be excellent for high-speed desert running. And this is also the first Jeep to come with one of these, a desert rated badge. Now, on a Rubicon, you're normally going to see the word trail rated. This one's desert rated, which is just a little bit different in its functionality. Now, we've also got Jeep written down here with orange accenting around the outside. Now, you're going to see that a little bit better if you opt for a different color. We have the orange hardtop roof, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later. You can also get this in black plastic, or you can get a soft top roof. Now, all the way back here, we have our 5-foot bed. Now, you can't get any other bed sizes. There's no long bed or short bed available, and they all come as 4 doors. There is no 2-door Gladiator model yet. Plenty of space back here, and I really like how this folding tonneau cover comes. You can obviously get different tonneau cover options available as well. And down here, we also, again, have our orange tow hooks, and of course, we have our towing bar right here, so you can hook that up and do some towing with this vehicle. Now, coming into the interior, the Gladiator's cabin is going to feel very familiar if you've ever been in a Wrangler before. We have the very flat military style dashboard here, although there are some interesting changes here for this Mojave trim. Starting with the steering wheel, we have this beautiful leather wrapped steering wheel with orange stitching. Orange is the theme on the Mojave after all. And this one is a little bit more gripped than a normal Wrangler or Gladiator wheel. That's to give you a little bit more control and stability at high speeds. I actually really love this steering wheel. Not too much storage down here. We just have our normal cup holders with like a little phone area here, but you do have some nice storage up here on the dashboard. Now, the technology in the Gladiator is really good, especially when you compare it against other mid-size competitors. That's because we have the larger 8.4-inch Uconnect head unit. You can get like a smaller 7-inch unit on Gladiators, but I'm glad we have the 8.4. We also have the optional front and rear cameras. Those are going to be very helpful when you're off-roading to help you spot rocks and things like that. We also have these off-road pages. I'm going to give those a second to load. All the switch gear here is very Wrangler familiar here. We've got our window switches here on the center console here. We've got our axle lockers and off-road controls down here. We have our 4-wheel drive controls, 2-wheel high, 4-wheel high down, and then you can put it in 4-wheel low by putting the truck into neutral. Now that the off-road pages have loaded, let's take a look at those. We've got pitch and roll. That's pretty cool. manual. You can put it into trail cam mode, and that'll leave the cameras on, and you can even push clean camera and it'll spray a little bit of water on it. That's really cool in case it gets too dirty. And you can also look at your steering angle, see what mode your transfer case is into, and see whether or not your rear axle is locked. So yeah, the interior here is, you know, it's pretty basic. It's, you know, it's a off-roading vehicle, but they have made some refinements to the cabin. We have extra bolstered seats here on Mojave. Ours are cloth, but you can get gray or black leather. And we have the optional hard top roof. You can obviously get a soft top as well, but Jeep has made it so easy to take off the roof here. These two front pieces are called the Freedom panels because of course they are. You just do this latch, 1, 2, 3, and then there's this latch here and the roof will pop right off, and it even has more insulation to make it a little bit quieter, adding to the overall livability of this truck. And in terms of livability, the back seat is pretty good as well. As a mid-sized truck, the Gladiator actually has pretty good space back here, 38.3 inches of rear legroom. I also have my rear vents back here, 2 USB ports and a 115 volt outlet. So pretty comfy back here. And if I lift up the seat back here, you're gonna notice some storage. So if you wanna put tools back here, this actually unbolts and you can carry it as a toolbox, which is pretty cool. And Jeep even gives you a storage area under here that is specifically designed for the bolts when you remove the roof and the doors. And I have another special secret underneath my seat. Underneath this seat, if I pull it down this way, you can see we have this Bluetooth speaker. It's a $295 option, which is kind of expensive for a Bluetooth speaker, but it is an Alpine unit and I've tested it out and it does sound pretty loud, which will come in handy on your next camping trip. But you can't learn about a truck like this sitting in a parking lot. So let's go ahead and take our roof panels off and get this orange paint a little muddy. All right, so now let's use the Jeep Gladiator for its intended purpose, off-roading. We don't have a Mojave Desert here in Florida, but we do have the Ocala National Forest, where I've decided to take this Jeep Gladiator Mojave. So let's get all of the nitty-gritty, boring stuff out of the way first of all. We've only got one engine option in the Gladiator. It's a 3.6 liter Pentastar V6 engine that delivers 285 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. Now that's not an outrageous number for the mid-size segment. It's not the most powerful. The Ranger does have more than that, so do the GM twins, but it's an adequate figure for sure. And the thing that you guys on the internet are gonna love about this truck is there are 2 transmission options. Now we don't have the base 6-speed manual. It's interesting because I can actually feel that Jeep left all of the room here for a clutch pedal, but my knee is kind of hitting the door here, so there's probably not a lot of room for a dead pedal, and I've heard other reviewers tell me that. We've got this 8-speed automatic, and as much as it pains me to say as a manual enthusiast, I think you should probably get the 8-speed automatic in this. It's just gonna make off-roading a whole lot easier. Now, if you do get the automatic like we have, you're gonna have a 52.6 to 1 automatic crawl ratio. All Gladiator Mojaves come with a 1-inch lift, riding on 17-inch tires, 17-inch wheels with 33-inch. We have the all-terrain tires here. And this baby is desert rated. That means it is suited for areas like this. We have some clay and sand here in Florida. So when you go over a bump, the suspension is so soft and so ready for it that the ride in this is absolutely sublime. We've got 2.5-inch internal bypass Fox racing suspension that's very similar to what you'll get in the Ford F-150 Raptor. And all of those have military grade suspension oil in them, fluid, and that's gonna help keep those shocks cool. It also has front and rear external shock reservoirs. All of that is to help make sure that on a hot Florida day, although it's actually quite nice out today, those shocks are not gonna overheat when you're running out on terrain like this. Now, as a truck, the Gladiator gets away with a 1,200 pound payload, so definitely not towards the higher end of the payload scale, but you are going to be able to tow 6,000 pounds. And again, not class leading for mid-sized trucks, but you know, it's enough for what I think most people are going to use this truck for. Now I pulled over here because, as I mentioned, we don't really have like a lot of rocks and mountains here in Florida, but we do have is these sand dunes. So I'm going to put it in full wheel low. Let's nail it up here. So ordinary trucks might get stuck here, but since the Gladiator has best-in-class approach angles, amazing departure and breakover angles, we can make short work of big, giant sand pits just like that very easily. I probably didn't even need to put it in four-wheel low for this, but here we go. I'm gonna take a stupid angle here, mat it up. Oh yeah, keeps fighting, no problem. Lost a little bit of traction, but it giddied up right over there. So there's really not going to be a whole lot of instances where the Gladiator isn't going to be able to get you where you need to go. The only thing that I will mention is that because this thing has a 5-foot bed hanging off of it, the breakover angle is not going to be as good as a standard Wrangler. So now that we've talked about the suspension and the crawl ratios and all that stuff, let's just talk about how the Gladiator drives. Obviously, we're not on a normal public road where much of the Gladiator is going to spend its life, but out there, these Fox shocks do so much work off-road that they actually are just too much for a road. Like, they end up being more suspension than you actually need. So the ride on this Gladiator is extremely comfortable. Now the steering, which is amazing out on off-road because it's so vague that it doesn't pull you any which way when you're doing off-road stuff. It's not so great when you're out on the road. You definitely feel like you're at the wheel of a tractor, but it's definitely better than old school Wranglers, and the current Wrangler also has decent steering and is a lot more livable as well. The power is adequate, never feels super outrageously fast. It definitely feels more on the sluggish side, but the 8-speed automatic does a great job of keeping you in the power at all times. So I do like the way that this drives more than the Tacoma. I've taken the Tacoma on the highway and I do prefer how the Gladiator feels. It's just a little bit more stable. The seats are definitely a lot more comfortable on this Mojave trim, and there is a fair bit of wind noise. Obviously, we're driving something that's an aerodynamic box, but the stereo, the Alpine stereo in here is fantastic. You can blast it, and even at like a low volume, it gets rid of all the wind noise fine. So I think if you're looking for the Gladiator and you're not really going to do a lot of the off-road stuff, get one of the lower trims instead of the Mojave. But if you live in Florida, I think this Mojave trim is absolutely perfect because it's better for soft sand, mud, stuff like that than the Rubicon, which is more for like mountainous terrains, which we don't really have here in Florida. But if you are going to buy the Gladiator and just drive it around every day, it actually is a pretty livable truck that I wouldn't mind driving every day. And now let's pull over and sum up our time with it. So that was the new 2020 Jeep Gladiator Mojave. Prices start at just under $44,000, but the one you see here has quite a few options, bringing the price to about $61,000. Now that easily makes the Gladiator the most expensive mid-sized pickup truck on the market over things like the Ford Ranger, Chevy Colorado, GMC Canyon, and the best-selling Toyota Tacoma. But let's see how many of those you can take the roof and doors off of and enjoy off-road. Now there are off-road vehicles like the ZR2 and the Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro, and those are great, but I never got as many looks driving one of those as I did in this. It's a Jeep thing. Maybe you just don't understand. So if you really do want the coolest truck on the market and you can't quite afford the F-150 Raptor, I think that the Jeep Gladiator Mojave is an easy must buy. Hope you've enjoyed this video. See you next time.